well, once we see her in the why does my fridge have to turn on the second I'm filming? Okay, whatever. Hey, it's Becca and welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you are new. So I finally got the courage to start filming videos while I'm in college. I am in my dorm right now, my roommate is in class, and I'm going to be taking her being class to my advantage so I can start filming videos for you guys again, because I miss it. I miss doing this. This is really fun. I like talking about TV shows with you guys and being able to share my opinions with you and hearing what you guys have to say. So I'm gonna try and do more because I miss this greatly and I am very bored. So anyway, today I wanted to talk about the parallels between Catra and Glimmer from She-Ra, because it's no secret that there's a ton of parallels between these two characters, and I find it so interesting to have this comparison between two characters on opposing sides of a war that share so many similar internal struggles, and I really want to talk about that today. And I also want to talk about these staggeringly different reactions that people have to these two characters, because if you've been a part of any of the She-Ra fandom, you know that people really like Catra and people seem to really not like Glimmer, and I want to talk about why that is today. So anyways, let's get into it. One of the most prominent similarities between Catra and Glimmer is their connection to those around them and how important their friends are to them. They want to be liked and they want to be seen as capable and competent and strong by those around them. So when that gets questioned, they tend to spiral, becoming more drastic and desperate in their moves and their efforts to complete their goals. And the best example of this for both of them is season 4. There's also the example of them both being thrust into positions of power and leadership at such a young age. They were both thrown into being in charge of these large armies and communities, and clearly they weren't ready for it. Even though both of them had been working up to being in these positions of power and that's what they had been working towards, they weren't ready. They're still kids at the end of the day. They weren't ready for it, and eventually they just crumbled under the pressure. I think that if people hadn't seen the similarities between these two characters before, I think Corridors, that episode, was really the moment that showed people, okay, there are a ton of parallels between these two characters. And obviously there were probably people that thought before. I've kind of picked up on it in season 4 how they were getting kind of similar reactions to the people around them, but I think Corridors is definitely the most prominent example of this and really just kind of threw that at everyone. I think the strongest connection between these two is their anger and frustration and feeling betrayed and shoved aside by their friends and those closest to them. With Catra, this is obvious. It's Adora. A large portion of her motivations in the early seasons drives from her anger and frustration towards Adora and for Adora leaving. Adora and Catra went through everything together in the Horde. They went through all of the pain and mistreatment in the Horde, especially from Shadow Weaver, and she just couldn't seem to understand how Adora could just leave her like that. Adora leaving was really the catalyst for Catra's downward spiral. She really believed that the two of them would be and go through everything together. She thought it was gonna be the two of them against the world, and Adora showed her that that really wasn't the case, which hurt a lot. Catra was left in a place where she really wasn't sure where to go and what to do, and it just kind of left her confused. All she wanted was for things to go back to the way they were before, and that wasn't gonna happen. This is most prominently shown in the episode where Catra gets the sword from Adora and opens a portal to a different reality. So in this alternate reality, Catra creates a reality where Adora never left. They stayed together. She stayed in the Horde, she got promoted, and so did Catra. Catra is able to experience a Horde where she gets approval from Shadow Weaver, where she doesn't get abandoned by her friends, and where they continue to go on the path that she always thought that they would. She was happy when her and Adora were together, and that's what she wants back. She wants her friend back. I think deep down she knows that Adora isn't ever going to come back to the Horde. It's gone too far at this point, and there's really no way for her to come back. And this is really the only way she can get that reality back. Then we get to season 4 and Scorpia. Well, Adora leaving was really kind of the first turning point in Catra's story. Scorpia leaving was what completely threw her over the edge. I do want to acknowledge that I don't think that Catra and Scorpia's friendship was healthy for either of them. Catra was extremely rude to Scorpia, downright abusive at some points. However, Scorpia also constantly crossed very clearly set boundaries from Catra, such as not really wanting to be touched by her as much as Scorpia touched her. So in the end, I just don't think that the friendship was really that great. I appreciate that they found some sort of friendship within one another, but like, it's not the greatest friendship that it could be. With Scorpia constantly crossing Catra's boundaries, though, it is kind of understandable why she acted the way she did. It's not an excuse, it's just an explanation. Despite everything, Scorpia offered kind of a sense of stability in the Horde for Catra. She knew that whatever happened, Scorpia was still going to be there. Even after the whole "you're a bad friend" moment, Catra still fully believed that Scorpia was still going to be there. She really thought that even after all of that, Scorpia was still going to be there for her. And when she wasn't, that really shocked Catra. In that moment, she felt like she had really just kind of lost it all at that point. After that, Catra began clinging to relationships with other people that weren't really that strong to begin with, especially Double Trouble, only to be let down by them because there wasn't really much of a friendship there to begin with, but Catra clung to that and hoped that there was something there with them, but there wasn't. This all comes to a head at the end of season 4 when Double Trouble confronts Catra. They taunt her, transforming into all of the people that have left Catra and saying that it's Catra's fault that they all left. While Catra can't really be blamed for all of her friendships falling apart, the more we go into the show, the more we see her being at fault for these friendships falling apart. The more we see her at fault for these friendships not really having a strong foundation to begin with. But we still see her clinging to them like they do. She's the one that drove Scorpia away, and she's the one that clung on to a friendship with Double Trouble that wasn't that strong to begin with. And now she was left to deal with the consequences of that. Glimmer also faces a lot of examples of feeling betrayed by her friends. While it seemed small at first, the first time we see this is with Princess Prom. Beau chooses to go with Perfuma over Glimmer, and that really hurts her. She feels like he's pulling away from her and that they're not going to be as close as they were. And for Glimmer, her friendship with Beau is one of the only ones that she had for the longest time. While we only really see her in the show having more friendships, we learn that for most of her life she only really had Beau. Now we see her with Adora and some of the other princesses as friends as well, but for her, for the longest time, it was only Beau, and that's why it stings so much that he chooses not to go with her. She feels like she's being betrayed by him. She puts on a show, she tries to convince the other people around her that she's okay with this, but she's really not. I think the reason that she clings to Beau so much is because she's lost a lot of other people in her life. She was never close with anyone else. She lost her father. Her relationship with her mother is strained at best. So Beau, for a while, was all she really had. Yes, in that moment, she did have Adora, but there wasn't the years and years of trust built up in their friendship that there was with her friendship with Beau. While this situation does move on pretty quickly within a few episodes, everything's fine, they're no longer mad at each other, it does plant the seed in the audience's mind that Glimmer does kind of face similar struggles to Catra in terms of constantly feeling betrayed by those around her. Season 4 also serves as a huge turning point for Glimmer. Her relationship with Adora has become strained due to Glimmer internally blaming Adora for the death of her mom, Angela. So when Adora and Beau start going on missions without her, going on missions with the other princesses, and saying that she needs to stay back now that she's queen and she needs to stay safe, Her fear starts to come back that she's being left behind by her friends, and it terrifies her. This eventually leads her to distancing herself from her friends as well, and eventually turning towards Shadow Weaver for support, which clearly does not work out very well. This tension in her friendship with Adora especially has been building since the start of the season. It's clear that there's some sort of anger towards what happened to Angela there, but nothing's really happened with that yet. However, it does come to a head when, following Shadow Weaver's advice, Glimmer uses Adora as bait so she can go and take down one of the Horde's supply bases. This only adds to the tension because Glimmer feels as though she's in the right. She took down an important Horde supply base, and she also knew that Adora would be fine. She'd be able to handle herself. However, Adora is hurt that her friend, without even consulting her, decided that it was worth putting her out as bait just so she could take down a supply base on her own. This furthers the rift that has been growing between the two, and even attempts from Bo to try and fix it just don't work. However, the moment that seems to really have all of this crash down is when Glimmer reveals to Adora that she does blame her for Angela's death. And as the audience, we can understand why Glimmer feels this way. She wasn't there, so in her mind, she feels as though Adora could have done more. But I also feel like the audience also has a really difficult time agreeing with her, because we were there and we did see Adora fully willing to sacrifice herself to get the sword back. And Angela was the one that made the decision to sacrifice herself. It wasn't like Adora wasn't planning on it or whatever, and that was always her idea to have Angela sacrifice herself. Angela made that choice. She made that choice for herself to save her daughter and to save her kingdom. We do see where Glimmer is coming from though, and this is why her and Adora's friendship has become so strained. This fully cemented the rift between them that would only grow and grow the further that the season went on. They continue to argue about what to do about the Heart of Etheria, eventually leaving Glimmer the most alone that she's ever been by the end of the season. Catra's other main motivation is proving to those around her that she belongs where she is and that she has earned the position that she is in, and she deserves exactly what has been given to her. As most of the problems in this show do, this derives from Shadow Weaver and Shadow Weaver's treatment of Catra. Catra spent her entire childhood trying to prove herself to Shadow Weaver, but it was never enough. No matter what she did, it was never enough for Shadow Weaver. And she was always compared to Adora because of it. Adora could do no wrong. Catra could only do wrong. Even once Catra made substantial ground in fighting against the rebellion, it wasn't enough for Shadow Weaver, only to have Shadow Weaver then turn around and claim the success as her own to Hordak. When, once again, Catra is betrayed by Shadow Weaver, she turns her attention to proving herself to Hordak. By now having a direct way to speak to Hordak in a way that she didn't have before, she's not speaking through Shadow Weaver to him, it provides another person to Catra that is above Shadow Weaver that she can attempt to prove herself to. She saw what happened when somebody wasn't of use to Hordak with Shadow Weaver, and she got just thrown out because of it, and she was determined to make sure that didn't happen to her. Unlike with Shadow Weaver, Catra was able to actually get some praise from Hordak, with having him promote her to Force Captain pretty early on, and by eventually making her his second in command. She was finally being able to be recognized for the achievements she was making for the Horde. Things do become rocky though once Hordak banishes her to the Crimson Waste in search of First One's tech, fully assuming that she is not going to come back from this mission. In this moment, we finally get a glimpse of Catra without the pressures of the Horde. We finally get to see her be free and just do what she wants. However, the second Adora shows up with that sword, it's all over for her. She becomes the same person she was before, determined to defeat Adora and get the sword and prove herself to Hordak once again. From there, season 4 sees Catra defeating Hordak and taking complete control of the Horde. We then see Catra attempt to prove that she's a competent leader and that she can handle herself and still provide substantial ground for the Horde. However, she still looks to Hordak for approval, making sure that her missions go well and she gets praise from him. Again, we see the same pattern repeat once she meets Horde Prime. She wants to prove to him that she can be useful and that she is worthy and that she deserves praise. However, I think the most meaningful example of this is her desire to prove herself to Adora. Once Catra is rescued by Adora and her friends, she immediately feels as though she's unworthy of this, that she didn't deserve to be saved, that it wasn't worth saving her. Yet Adora wants her to see that she is worth it and that she would always go back and save her no matter what. She still cares about Catra even after all of the things that she's done. From there, Catra spends the rest of the season trying to prove herself to the other princesses and to Adora to prove that she was worth all of the effort it took to rescue her and that she can be a helpful asset to them. It's a difficult ask since Catra has spent the majority of the show tormenting these princesses and their homes, but eventually it pays off and she gains the respect that she has always craved. Glimmer's main motivations are very similar to Catra's in this sense. In one of the first scenes that we see Glimmer, she's complaining that her mom isn't taking her seriously and that she is more useful on the battlefield than people are making her out to be. In this moment, all she wants to do is to be able to show her mom that she is worthy of respect as an officer of their armies, that she is able to be competent enough to lead an army against the Horde. Whether it was justified or not, Angela did keep a lot of things from Glimmer and hold her back, which definitely did put a strain on their relationship. There's also the case of the other princesses. Once Glimmer was given the task of recruiting them to join the rebellion, it was up to her to prove to them that it was worth doing so and it wasn't gonna just be a failure like it was with their parents. She was constantly forced to prove that the rebellion was worth joining, and it often took this huge act of strength to show that the rebellion is good and that it's worth joining for the other princesses. Then we have the really obvious example. Once Angela dies, Glimmer is left with the title of queen and the responsibility to lead all of these armies against the Horde. With her being as young as she was, nobody really expected her to be able to do anything, or to really be able to do the same kind of things that Angela did while she was queen. Especially after losing her mother so quickly, even her friends didn't really think that she would be able to be up for it and tried to shield her at first from all of the things that could remind her of her mom or anything like that. You know, they were just worried about her and wanted to make sure that she was okay, but that's just more people in her life that were doubting her and that she felt as though she needed to prove herself to. In response to all of this pressure that's been put on her to be able to defeat the Horde, she begins to make more drastic and dangerous decisions for the sake of winning a battle. By putting her friends in danger, it further strains her relationship with those friends, making her more and more desperate to prove herself to them. It's a never-ending cycle, and it puts her at the lowest she's ever been by the end of season 4. Similarly to Catra, Glimmer spends a lot of time in season 5 trying to prove herself to her friends that she is worthy of the effort it took to rescue her, that she is a good friend, and that she is sorry for all of the things that she did to them previously. She has a really difficult time believing that after everything that happened, Adora, and specifically Bo, would still want to rescue her. So in return, she wants to do everything that she can to prove to them that it was worth all of the effort it took to do so. She also wants to prove that this isn't going to happen again. She's not going to do the same things that she did before, and she wants to prove that she can be a good friend to them. While there are a lot more smaller similarities between these two characters, I feel like these two are the most important. Now, it is absolutely no secret that the fan base has drastically different reactions to Catra and Glimmer. While Catra's bad actions are often acknowledged by the fan base, she's generally seen in a pretty positive light. People were rooting for her redemption. They wanted to see her move past the Horde and to become friends with Adora again. People were willing to look past all of the bad things she did because they knew she wasn't just her actions. There was more to Catra than her actions. However, the same can't be said for Glimmer. As we've previously mentioned, she made a lot of the same mistakes that Catra did. However, she was deemed irredeemable by the fan base and was dragged completely for it. A lot of people didn't want any sort of redemption for her. Even though she had such a similar storyline to Catra, she got quite a different reaction because of it. Yet I think there's kind of one thing that really sets the two of them apart and could offer an explanation for the differing reactions to the two characters. It's actually rather simple. Catra's a villain, she's an antagonist, and it's very clear from the beginning that her actions are bad. The show doesn't try to sugarcoat what she does or make it seem like what she's doing is good. They make it very clear that her actions are bad, and it's that way from the very beginning. So when she does something that isn't great, the audience isn't surprised. They kind of expect it from Catra. Obviously they hope for better, but when she doesn't do something good, it's not surprising to anybody. However, there are glimpses of a good person inside of Catra, and that's why the audience roots for her. We can see that there is something else there in Catra, that she isn't a bad person. They want to see her change. They want to see her evolve past her bad actions and reunite with Adora as friends again. Glimmer is introduced as a good guy, someone on the right side of the war. The show attempts to make it seem as though her actions are justified because she's trying to win a war, and the rebellion are obviously the good guys. For a while, it doesn't seem like the show holds these two characters to the same standard, even though they had very similar actions. I mean, Glimmer did have the whole Heart of Etheria thing happen, which led Horde Prime to them. And all she really got for that was Bo being mad at her for a couple of episodes, which doesn't really feel like that much of a consequence. However, you could argue that the same thing happened for Catra. She tormented these princesses for who knows how long, all for Adora just to come and rescue her and for things to go back to normal pretty quickly once she joins the team. Even in Glimmer, Catra was the one responsible for her mom dying, and Glimmer just forgives her pretty quickly. I do think that there's some sort of double standard there between the two characters, but in a sense I think it can be a little justified. Glimmer doesn't deserve all the hate she gets, not by a long shot, but I don't think she should just be completely praised either. People do take it too far though, and I think that's where the intense hate for Glimmer comes from. I mean, everyone likes a good redemption story. Just look at Zuko from Avatar: The Last Airbender. Everyone loves him and his story. And Catra provides that for people. She is the good redemption story. We get to see a character who was once bad become good, and people really like that kind of thing. And for a lot of people, Glimmer's story is a lot harder to attach onto because of it. Overall, it's easier to trust a character who's always been bad and doesn't try to hide that they're bad. When they're clear about their intentions and their actions are very clearly bad, it's not shocking when they do bad things. When you already expect a character to be good and then they do something bad, it hurts a lot more. And I think that is the big difference between the two characters. In the end, Catra and Glimmer serve different purposes in the narrative. Catra is the clear villain who works towards redeeming herself by the end. Glimmer is a character with good intentions but flawed execution. They both follow through with similar bad ideas, but they are viewed differently by the audience because of the way they are presented in the show. I think that if both Catra and Glimmer were presented as antagonists from the beginning, we wouldn't really be having this conversation, and they would most likely get treated the same. Despite that, the audience was given a really interesting parallel between two characters on opposite sides of the war, and I think that's really interesting to see in a show. Anyways, that is it for the video, guys. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please like and subscribe. I really appreciate it if you do. If you guys want me to talk about She-Ra again, please let me know in the comments, and let me know what your opinions are on Catra and Glimmer. Do you have a favorite between the two? Why do you like one more than the other? You know, anything like that. I love reading your comments. So yeah, that's gonna be it, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!